I'm Dr. Sharon Schutz, and I'm here this morning with our police chief, Stephen Jones, and he is also doing the responsibilities of the city manager. And this is Emmanuel, who works for the water company. And we wanted to come out and take a look at what you're doing out here and what's going on with the water. There's been a lot of concern, and people just want to know. So can you tell us what's going on with the water? And first of all, tell us about your licensing and who you are and what you do with the city.
I'm a groundwater operator for the city of Trinity. I have my Class D license, and I'm scheduled to go get my Class C license. And daily, me or Mr. Charles, we test the water throughout the water system. And so I am a licensed operator, and TCEQ, which is Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, they're very strict, and they're over us.
So Ms. Schultz asked us to do this, so that's why we come out here, because we want to show. And also, before I took this over, I didn't know exactly where our water come from and how it happened. So that's why I think it's a great opportunity to use this network to really explain. KTRE came out here, but she didn't actually have the amount of time that I think y'all are going to have. But let's address some of the questions that I've been hearing. We don't have a licensed people. Actually, we have two licensed gentlemen. We have Mr. Emmanuel Williams here, Mr. Charles Page. Mr. Page has such a license that he actually teaches the class for others to get their license. So he's very knowledgeable about the water and sewer and all of that. Like Emmanuel was saying, TCEQ is Texas Environmental Quality Control. They come every 3 months and test our water to make sure we're doing right. And they test for the cancer agents. They test for make sure everything's right. However, I used to think the same thing, that, well, what are they putting in the water, or what are they doing, or where do they get the water from? Is it a pond out here somewhere? But the truth is out here, we're out here at the wells, what we call the wells. We have 3 wells, and I'll point to one of them. Is this over here, very simple looking thing, is well number 3. That well simply is 15 foot down, and it connects to an underground aquifer. There's an underground river that runs underneath this area. So we're not connecting to the Trinity River. We're not connecting to Lake Livingston. We're not getting it out of a pond or a creek or anything out here. It's getting it out of an aquifer that several places use. That water, there's 3 wells in different areas that pumps to this thing right here. And it all comes to this line right here. Once it comes to this line, it's actually a very simple process. If it goes to this blue settlement tank, that tank is where some of the sand and some of the sediment can be taken out of the water. And this is basically the city's first step at treating the water. This is the first step. Manny, can you turn it on for me? This is the city's first step at treating the water. Once a day, Emmanuel or Charles comes out here, and they'll turn this little valve on, and what they're doing is the sand settles down. They turn this valve on, and they let the water flow into this sand tank. This tank, you'll start smelling a little bit of an ammonia smell, a sulfur smell. And if you can see how clear that water is, that is the water straight out of the aquifer. Directly from the aquifer. And if you can see around here a little bit, there's a sand buildup. That's when they fill this up, the sand settles, it pours out to the creek, and that's the first process of trying to get some of the sand out of it. From there, this is an aerator. The water simply goes to the top of it and trickles down through some filtering, and what that does is gets all the gas, and what we're smelling out here is the sulfur smell, and it gets all the gas smell and the sulfur smell out of the tank, out of the water. So, used to, if you remember, our water did have a little bit of a smell sometimes, and if you look over there, that's because it was the old aerator was smaller and it was old. This is a newer one, and it's a bigger one. So the water comes down through the aerator, and it comes down through here, and it goes right into here, right here, and it goes into this storage tank. This storage tank is about 16 foot deep. It has 3 pumps that are pumping water to it that keep it full. The only thing they add out here is chlorine. They add chlorine to the water. Now, the recent problem that we had with the brown water for so long during Thanksgiving holiday was one of the wells was struck by lightning, so it was down. So we had 2 wells, so the water level is low. A squirrel bit the line up close to town, and I can show you later the burned grass. A squirrel bit the line that fried the circuits in well number 1. So we already had well number 2 down, then well number 1 went down, and when well number 1 and 2 are both down, it only leaves 1 well filling this tank. Well, when it did that, it brought the water level so low that in the bottom of this tank, the sand sediment that doesn't necessarily all get caught here is at the bottom of the tank waiting. And when we got the pumps fixed and we turned the pump back on, it stirred up all that sand and settlement and everything that's in the bottom of the tank. So it's not anything that hurts you, but it's just, you know, it browns the water, and you got to wait for it to settle back down to basically filter back out. About this tank, we have the tank, a diver, and matter of fact, the divers are going to be coming on December 6th. They're going to put in diving gear and everything, and if you'll see a hatch over here, they're going to dive into the tank in diving gear with cameras, and they're going to go down and film it, and they're going to give us a disc of the quality of the inside of the tank to make sure there's no leaks in the tanks, make sure there's no problem, and let us know about how much sand settlement is at the bottom. And if it's the amount of sand settlement needed, then we'll have another company comes out and they'll vacuum that sand settlement out of there. So it's kind of an annual or every 2-year cleaning of that sand settlement that will come out. And when you say sand and you think, well, it's a very pure white sand, a very clean looking sand that simply settles to the bottom of the tank, just much like a fish tank. You get you a fish tank, you open up, your kids are excited, you set it up, you fill it with water, and it's all clear, it's all muggy, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, when you wake up the next morning, it's all clear. Well, it's the same situation with this tank. We don't like stirring up that sand settlement at the bottom, but the sand settlement is part of it. And as simple as that process is, 3 pumps, pump to here, we start getting a little bit of sand out, it goes to an aerator, it goes into this tank, we put chlorine in it, and we send the water to town. That's simple. There's no bells and whistles, there's nothing to it. It goes to a storage tank in town. Once it gets to that storage tank in town, they add some more chlorine to it, and it goes from there, and it goes to our water tower, and it goes out into the neighborhoods. Every once in a while, we do have people who complain of brown water, they have a problem, and we need to go out and flush the line, and we do flush the line. And that's a continual problem that we always have, any water system has. Part of that is not because of the water quality, not because of anything to do here, but because of the quality of the pipes in our community that, you know, are aging. With anything, we have to work on getting those things repaired in time. And, you know, we're working on grants and we're working on different things to try to, the city workers repair some of those as we go. And then when it's really bad, and with anything, you have a little bit of sediment in the pipe, and that's to be understood. Anybody who doesn't understand that, you know, has problems. I don't have a cost to do the entire city, and some of the areas in the cities have been done. And I don't know a cost because it's something that naturally I've just started doing this, and I know that there's some places that need to be done. And I have reached out there. I met with a lady from the governor's office the other day and reached out to her, and I've started putting out feelers for different grants in different areas. We do have a company that we work with, and I'm reaching out to them, and hopefully that's something that I'm interested in getting done. It's but before we can do that, we got to take baby steps. And the baby steps that we're doing right now is that I'm working on a project to replace all of our water meters, so that we can accurately track all of our water first. And if we can get that process completed first, which I'm hoping to have done by January, then we'll start on the water lines after that. So you can't do everything at one time. You got to do everything piece by piece by piece. And again, if people have a complaint, if they're having a rough time with their water at their house, call us. We want to be called. We want to know. When this situation happened, this was out of our control. the water line, this being struck by lightning during the hurricane, we had the insurance claim paid on that. They paid $13,000 to have the well redone for us, to have the pump put back in. We took the initiative to, the piping for the well was old and rusted and starting to deteriorate. We took the initiative to replace the pipe while they were here, instead of having to come back out later and costing us more money. And then when the squirrel did what it did up here, it caused a breakdown in our system, kind of a perfect storm situation. However, it doesn't mean you're not going to have some brown water in your line, and that just means your line needs to be cleaned out, but that's because of the piping, not because of the quality of the water that we get it from point A.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Oh, yeah.
it. And,
Did we talk about TCQ?
No, we didn't.
Okay. And as far as some people wonder, like I talked about, we have 2 licensed professionals who take care of our water quality and our sewer quality. And as far as an outside entity checking in on us, every 3 months, a contractor from TCEQ comes and tests the water at different locations all over the city. And if there's a problem, they're going to find the city. They're going to let us know. You'll be hearing about it. There's an issue, if there's a problem. After this situation happened with the Thanksgiving Day water, so a lady did call TCEQ. They did send out a representative on that Monday. He tested the water at her house. He tested the water at the Avalon, and all the tests come back clear. Everything came back fine and no problems. The gentleman did note that there was a brown tint to the water, but like I said, we've explained why. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
appreciate you doing this
Yeah.
interview and letting us know what's going on. It's kind of hard when you're sitting back and you don't understand and you see this.
I did the same thing. Before I realized, before I dug into, really, the water comes from an aquifer, here to here to here. You put chlorine in it and you send it to town. You know, there's no boogeyman out here, dumping trash on top of it or something. There's no,
Well, thank you for showing
there's
us.
there's government agencies that are watching everything. There's we're having the dive guys that come out and they're going to dive in the tank and check the tank. There's all kinds of things that are done.
Thank you.